Well, the key, even if you don't like something, even in advocacy work, if you don't like
Yeah.
it, the best way to fight it is to be educated about it. So
Yeah.
you still have to know what you're talking about.
Welcome to the Brand Brief podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and key strategies that are driving brand growth. This podcast is powered by Brand Method Media Group, and I'm your host, Kelly Kelly. Today's guest is Rose Crichton-White, Director of Marketing, Development, and Special Events of Brooklyn Conservatory of Music, a 127-year-old nonprofit community music school. Welcome to the show, Rose.
Hi, thank you for having me, Kelly.
So, just to create some context, let's start with an overview of your role and some of your key responsibilities.
Sure. So, as a director of marketing and development and special events, that is a mouthful. I do oversee three departments that really are about the external affairs of this fabulous nonprofit and managing all marketing, all communications, whether it's promoting classes or promoting the institution as a whole, as a brand itself, development, which involves the fundraising of the organization and contributed revenue, and then special events. We actually produce many events over the year, but there are a few of them that are specific to fundraising and brand awareness. And I have a big hand in making those happen.
Amazing. Now, we mentioned this is an organization over 100 years standing. So, I would imagine brand identity has evolved over time, and you guys have served thousands of New Yorkers. What role has storytelling played in communicating the history and the transformation to the donors and the broader community?
Yeah, I think storytelling is so important to the work that we do, especially in the fundraising world. As an older organization and a Brooklyn organization, we have a long and storied history with our specific community. So, just first, overall, we are a place-based organization where we actually have a Victorian mansion located in Park Slope, Brooklyn. But that's not the extent of the story. We serve over 80 sites now across NYC with music education and music therapy. And having folks know that history, that we're not just about the space that we're in, is really key to the story that we tell folks. We have people that pay for our classes, and whether you're a young child just learning how to play the violin or exploring for the first time, or an 80-year-old trying to come back to your love of the piano, you can pay for our classes, but we also use many of those funds, a lot of the contributed revenue, a lot of the donations we get to provide free or low cost resources to schools and other community based organizations. And we really want to tell that story. It's so important that folks don't just say, oh, you're a music school, because we're so much more.
Right. Now, your career, you have extensive experience in this area from your Hot 97 community relations background to managing Bricks Media Share program. You've clearly mastered reaching diverse audiences, which you mentioned the participants of the Brooklyn Conservatory Museum can be diverse. It can be children, it can be elders. What
Mm-hmm.
strategies have proven most effective for authentic audience engagement, particularly when you're bridging commercial media sensibilities with the mission driven storytelling of a nonprofit?
Sure. I think there are a couple of things to keep in mind there. One is active listening. So your audience is king. Whether you're working at a commercial media outlet or a nonprofit, you are listening to your community, or at least you should be. And you're listening to keywords, you're watching to see what platforms they're using to get messaging. You're walking around, if you're a place-based organization, you're walking around your community to see what they're doing. And that really informs how you treat and message to your audiences. And they're all different. The other thing is making sure that you're aware of what's happening externally. What are the trends? What are you seeing? Using some of that data to kind of incorporate all of that. Now, when you work at a nonprofit, the trick is you don't want to do that to the point of mission creep, where you're following all the trends and we're going to be on TikTok, yet the majority of our audience is still on Facebook. So, you want to make sure that you're still being true to your mission and the folks, the core of who you serve without kind of going so far in. But you want to be aware, you want to make sure that people can trust you and get that information from you that they need the way they need to receive it.
Are you all using AI? And if so, how?
We have started. I mean, I will say in general the nonprofit world tends to be a little bit behind the curve when it comes to adoption of newer technology. And really there's some distrust, rightfully so, of using things like AI in a creative space as well. But I think, we do know how to use it. We have to write grants a lot. We have to do a lot of communication. We have to do a lot of brainstorming about different things. And sometimes being able to just know how to use a prompt correctly with chat gpt, knowing that there are different AI platforms that do different things is key for us too. And it helps when you work for a nonprofit where many times we're wearing a lot of different hats and multitasking many things. It helps with that workflow if you're able to offload, an administrative task and really focus on the program work for a minute, and that helps. So we're starting, we're moving in there slowly but surely. We use it. We don't want to do it to the point where it becomes more about the technology and not as much about the people, but we definitely want to be in there and we don't want to be left behind.
Yeah, I oddly enough had a conversation with my 9-year-old yesterday, and she just randomly blurts out, she's like, I don't like AI. And I said, well, are you using AI? What has informed your opinion you don't like it already? And she's like, I saw something on TikTok and a strawberry had a person's face and it was eating another strawberry. I don't like it. It all looks weird. I said, well, listen, I said,
Mm-hmm.
because she has her sights set on being an engineer, I said, listen, I understand it can get weird, but you're gonna have to learn it. So like, let's not develop the aversion at this age and you're
Right.
combative about it. So by the time you become an adult, if you're an engineer, you'll be using it to maybe draw up plans or, whatever your work entails.
True.
So, but already at 9, she said, I don't like it. It's weird. She said, everything is gonna look goofy if people keep using it.
Well, the key, even if you don't like something, even in advocacy work, if you don't like
Yeah.
it, the best way to fight it is to be educated about it. So
Yeah,
you still have to know what you're talking about.
absolutely. So, looking ahead, what trends do you see shaping how community arts organizations like the Brooklyn Conservatory Museum will need to market themselves to raise funds? I personally sit on the board for a nonprofit here in Atlanta, Scottdale Early Learning. So I've been in those conversations about budget and as things are changing on a broader scale with how donations are being made or not made and grants are being,
Hmm.
sent or not sent. And we've had board meetings where we've had to have some hard conversations with government the budget.
Right.
Looking ahead, what do you see can be done from a marketing perspective to continue to build the relationships with foundations and donors to keep pace and still grow? What do you think is going to be next for this?
I think, in terms of some trends, technology is a culture in and of itself. So, as we were talking about before, just the nonprofit space catching up to technology and being a little less risk averse when it comes to that, I think is just going to be a trend. We have to do it. I think in terms of our relationships with donors, funders, foundations, et cetera, where that comes into play is there's a lot of research needed in terms of who to talk to, when to talk to them, what other things they're funding, et cetera. And so that is helpful. And I think more work will be put into that, especially as initiatives and directives are changing and there's a push and pull as to how things are positioned and why we want to fund this program versus another, so different even from last year.
Right.
So that's going to come into play. I do think as well, like the arts and culture space, specifically talking about the Brooklyn Conservatory of Music, is going to push a lot more into the healthcare and kind of mental health field even more. Our music therapy program has grown, and with things happening in the world since the pandemic, since, as things become more and more fraught in our world, I think more and more folks are going to turn to kind of the clinical perspectives that the arts and culture world can offer. to help with these things. And it's going to become more and more of a place where we can also turn to funders to kind of help kind of push that along. So I think that's also going to happen too. And anything with data informed decision making, so processes, infrastructure, et cetera, things of that nature, updating all of that, that's going to have to happen just to be more efficient in the work that we do.
How do you balance the need to demonstrate the measurable impact to your foundations and corporate donors with the more deeply personal, sometimes intangible benefits of music education and therapy? Like, how are you presenting the impact and the ROI?
I will say our team is pretty adept at doing that. We often take the data. We need our data. How many students have attended? What instruments are they playing? How many teachers and faculty members did we hire? How many spaces are we in? We use all of that, but we also use the storytelling as part of it. We don't just kind of just drop the data in there. Really, the data is telling a story about how much impact that we're doing, and again, how much more impact we could have by being supported more in those ways. And so, we have our annual report, as most nonprofits do, where we put in our data and beautiful photos and great narratives, and we do all of that. We also do, the business model of an impact report during the mid-year, which is, really a shorter version of like, here has been our impact these past
So
couple of
far.
months. And
Mm.
here's a case study, a deeper dive into maybe one or two things that really you can see how that impact has grown and exactly what we did to make that impact happen and how you might want to be a part of that. And so we really take our time and try to do that in good ways. So I think that's just what you have to do. They're not siloed. You need the data and you need the narrative.
So, what's next for the Brooklyn Conservatory of Music? What do you guys have coming up? What are you excited about? What's on the horizon?
Well, I personally have been with the conservatory for about 5 years, and of course, the organization is over 125 years old. But in the past 10 years, we have done this really, really big event that's become our major fundraising event called the House Party, where if you imagine a Victorian mansion with about 19 music studios, normally, there are kids in there during the day and adults come too, but we literally take it over for the adults only party, different themed rooms. You can have something as zany as a room that looks like a 7-Eleven inside to a musical act that's performing raga music in a different place. And it's the 10 years of doing this. And it's kind of our gala. It's our way of really expressing who we are as a community-based organization. We also take over the block and build a stage, and we have an outdoor garden. So it's a full like big party, and we're 10 years doing this year. It's November. I'm personally very excited to make that happen this year because it's one of the funnest events I've been to, and I've been to a lot of great events. And I'm also celebrating, our executive director. His name is Chad Cooper. He was the person that really transformed the organization 10 years ago and decided to implement the house party, and we get to honor him too, and I'm excited about that as well. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and we have some big major plans that I can't fully reveal
Not
just yet.
yet.
But I would hope that folks can kind of take a look at our website and see updates, bkcm.org, see updates about what we're doing. But we have some major announcements that we'll be doing in the fall as well.
That's awesome. Well, that's going to wrap today's show. Thank you to our incredible guest, Rose Crichton-White, Director of Marketing, Development, and Special Events of Brooklyn Conservatory of Music. We'll have contact information in the show notes for anyone interested in supporting their mission to make music education accessible to all New Yorkers or attending any of their events or just keeping up with what's coming down the pipeline. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you next time.